Hi, and welcome back to your Autism Game Plan. I'm Joy Vanderlaan, a family nurse practitioner, a functional medicine specialist, and an autism mom. Today I want to tell you a little bit about picky eaters and tips and tricks that you can use at home to help your picky eater. Picky eating is a problem with kids with autism, even kids without autism. But it's estimated that about 50 to 90% of kids with autism end up having feeding problems of some sort. And so what I'd like to do today is give you some practical tips on what you can do at home to help your child. If we think about some of the reasons why our kids might be picky eaters, sometimes it's easier to think of a solution that may help. So to start off with, one thing that can often be going on is a sensory issue. Maybe the child is having a sensory aversion issue to certain textures of foods, certain temperatures of foods. Maybe they don't like the gooey or the liquidy stuff, but they'll eat crunchy stuff just fine. One big issue can be zinc deficiency. Zinc is so involved in our sense of taste and smell that if a child is deficient in zinc, and it's affecting their sense of taste and smell, they may really have aversions to certain foods because their taste and smell senses are off. As I mentioned in my zinc video, a lot of kids with autism actually have something called Pyrrole Disorder as well. And this is a case where they pee out too much of their zinc and their B6. And so they're deficient in their bodies, they don't have enough. And so what that can lead to then is this picky eating. Now, if we supplement with the zinc and the B6, then often we see an improvement in the symptoms that result from B6 and zinc deficiency, especially the picky eating. Another reason that our kids might be picky eaters is that a lot of times kids with autism crave things to be the same routine, same texture, same color, same foods. And so it can be a challenge to get them to eat anything that's different. Sometimes things that are new can also feel overwhelming. And so when we're dealing with a child who already has sensory issues, the thought of putting either a lot of food or a new food or a strong smelling food or a very strong tasting food can lead to significant overwhelm in their sensory system. Sometimes children with autism have oral motor difficulties, so difficulties chewing or moving the food around in their mouth or difficulties swallowing. I see this a lot, candida or yeast overgrowth. What this tends to cause is intense carbohydrate or sugar or sweet cravings, leading the child to really strongly prefer those foods to foods that are higher in protein or fat or even vegetables. One thing to remember too is that very often the foods that our children crave, and this is true of us too, very often if a person is craving a food, it can mean that you're actually sensitive to that food. So for instance, our kids who crave gluten and dairy, that actually may be a sign that they are sensitive to that food and actually shouldn't have that food. Well, what are some things you can do today, right now, to help your child get in a wider variety of foods or make them more likely to accept new foods and more nutritious foods? Well, one of the things you can do is start a zinc supplement, right? We talked about the fact that zinc deficiency is often a big culprit in what's making our kids picky eaters. So I did a video on zinc and the importance of zinc and even how to supplement zinc. So you may want to watch that and get a little bit more information until you feel comfortable with maybe starting a zinc supplement with your child. What works really well for some kids is juicing or making smoothies. So if you have a blender at home, you can literally throw so many nutritious foods in the blender and disguise them with a combination of sweet things like berries or bananas or certain protein powders. So that can be a really good way to get nutrients into our kids as well. One thing I've been known to do is make popsicles out of these smoothies. Remember, our kids might prefer different sensory experiences, and so the liquid texture of a smoothie may not be their favorite, but they may enjoy biting or sucking on a really cold, kind of crunchy, hard popsicle instead. very often our kids can sense our frustration. And if we express that frustration and anger, they're not likely to do what we say. So just like with the pill swallowing video where I tell you don't make a big deal about it, this is another area where we really have to do our best to be calm and unemotional about it. I would recommend putting things on the child's plate just like you put it on everybody else's plate in small amounts so it's not too overwhelming for them. And maybe make sure that you're not singling out one child or one person in the family. And so make it a family rule, something like everybody in the family has to try 3 bites of each food. Whether or not it's your favorite food, you have to try 3 bites. See if that works. Something that makes pretty good common sense is simply limiting snacks and caloric drinks like juice or milk before meals. If they're filling up on liquid calories or other snacks before meals, they're not going to be hungry and therefore not very motivated to eat, let alone try new or non-preferred foods. You can also try foods at different temperatures. So what if the child doesn't like, hot peas or hot corn that have been cooked? Well, might they like them straight out of the freezer? I literally have been known to serve my kids frozen peas and corn, and somehow they're sweeter when they're frozen, the flavor is less strong, and certainly the smell is basically non-existent. And so we can get rid of or lessen some of those sensory issues by just changing the temperature of the food. You can make a puree or a very finely chopped or blended mix of onions, celery, carrots, zucchini, all sorts of different things. And you can actually put those into your meatballs or put them into your pasta sauce or put them into your meatloaf. And it hides the texture and the flavor of the veggies so well. My kids still don't know that I do this, and they will eat it perfectly willingly. Another trick I use often is gelatin or collagen powder. This is a great way to add more protein to many different things, including smoothies or soups. You can even make jello out of certain types of collagen or gelatin, and so that can make a really good snack or addition to a meal as well. When you're making soups, which our kids will often eat, think about using bone broth instead of just regular broth. The bone broth has the benefit of extra fat and protein, amino acids, minerals, and other nutrients that really can boost the nutritional value of the meal that you're serving to your child. And one more tip, which is just really going to be helpful for everyone trying to be healthier in the family, is just get rid of the junk food. Our kids often go for that, and especially when it's right there, when they're old enough to grab it for themselves. If the junk is there, they're more likely to eat it, right? So, and same for us. I know for me, if there is junk food in my house, it is so hard sometimes to have the willpower to say no to it. And so just think about our poor kids who, they don't have the willpower, and they're having these cravings sometimes and these sensory aversions. So if we can just get rid of a lot of the foods with the food dyes or processed foods, high sugar foods, if we can just get rid of those out of the house, stop buying them, that's often going to be beneficial for them as well. Well, once again, I hope you've enjoyed the video and found the information helpful. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at joya@yourautismgameplan.com if you have suggestions for topics for future videos, or if you have questions or really any feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Remember, we're all in this together. Be gentle with yourself. You're doing a great job.